Here are Ryan's top 3 favorite wrestlers. Number 3, Will Ospreay. Number 2, Kenny Omega. Number 1, Master Wada. No way, that can't be right. Damn! Now back to Jack and Ryan on the MonsterCast.
We might as well. Let's talk about it. First, let's set the stage here, because this was all set up because of the stupid Ariel Helwani interview that Punk gave, where he decided to say a bunch of shit that no one thought would ever really be talked about.
I just choked a guy a little bit. What the fuck are you talking about,
Okay. There's some Punk fans that obviously I follow on Twitter because I am, or was, a huge Punk fan, I should say.
Damn.
I'm a Punk fan. I'm just not a huge Punk fan anymore. I mean, you cannot deny the man is the biggest hypocrite in wrestling history.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
All right. So I've seen that. He's right now. He's about as far away from Punk as you could possibly be.
Are you saying he's PG Punk?
No, he's not Punk at all. He's literally not Punk.
No, I understand.
The establishment of Punk is not what he's doing. Okay, so while he's wearing a Ramon shirt, by the way, on this interview,
and he met the guy from the Ramones and took a picture with him and everything.
Yeah.
Super.
I mean, he's huge fans. I mean, he's huge friends with the lead singer of Rancid as well. But,
or maybe it was Rancid. I don't know. It's all the same.
It's probably Rancid.
Only Punk I care about is Jawbreaker.
Okay, so the interview he gave, where Ariel Helwani asked him a bunch of questions, and I guess Punk felt compelled to answer them so that he didn't get killed on the internet, like Ariel tried to kill TK for being distant with his answers, I guess. So he was trying to be coy and sly with it, I guess. I don't fucking know, but he gave vague bullshit answers. And then, of course, we end up finding out that really none of it was actually true. The people that watched the video, okay, so, all right, let's talk about let's just try to focus on this interview first, okay?
Okay.
When he tells Ariel Helwani that it's a business, but it's not a business in it to make money.
Right.
Or he throws shade at Dave Meltzer's star ratings and says, is it really a 5-star match if only a quarter of the building was full, or whatever the fuck however he phrased it.
One of Dave's first 6-star matches, by the way, was a fucking house show.
Yeah.
It was a house show match between Steamboat and Flair.
Well, I'm sure it was packed, but that's neither here nor there. If it's a 4, if it's a 5, if it's a 6, whatever star rating, it doesn't matter how many people are there. That doesn't take away from the match quality. That just means a lot of people got to miss out on a really good match. That's not my problem. That's not how the ratings work. We're not gonna start giving ratings based off okay, it was 5 stars, but I'm gonna deduct a star because the house wasn't full.
Okay, I think that's true to a point, though, because if you have a match in front of 3 people, the crowd reaction part of it is so important that I think it's hard, no matter how good the moves are, the storytelling is, whatever. I think it's hard to say that match isn't a different score if it's in front of a larger crowd, even if they do the exact same thing.
Okay, I understand the larger crowd because you literally said 3 people, which is never going to happen. But if you have,
there is some line there that it crosses.
Yes, I agree with that. But it's also a line that crosses where you have the ECW or the AEW fan base, which are way more vocal at a quarter full fucking building than, hey, I've got 10,000 people and I can't hear shit. And they're not reacting to anything about this match because they're just sorry ass fans that are just there to be there.
Just sitting on their hand, dude. Okay, so the Punk interview. Okay, so there's two things that kind of get conflated, I feel like. So I've watched the Punk interview with Helwani, and I've even gone back and like read the transcript of it to make sure that I was understanding shit correctly. And there's 2 versions of events. There's the version that Punk tells on this podcast, and there's the side that Hausman posted that he got from Punk and confirmed that he got from Punk pretty much immediately.
We're talking about the very original report, which is nothing like what happened in the video.
Not even remotely close
to it.
Correct,
yeah.
Now, what he says in the interview is vague enough to where it like kind of matches up. So people are like, oh look, he said that he did this, and that's pretty much how it happened. The problem is, one of the things that he says in the interview is, then I turned to Tony and said, you fucking tried to jump across the desk like a fucking maniac. Okay?
Yeah, if Jerry Lynn wasn't there, what would you have done exactly?
Right.
You would have been on top of him
over the table. Yeah,
exactly.
So it's just so stupid. But the people forget this, but his original version that he gave to Hausman pretty soon afterward was that Perry came up to him and was the one who, I believe he even said that he shoved him first, and then he's the one that shoved him back. That was the Hausman interview. I can go find it. Or the
I can tell you exactly what he says. He said that he literally Perry came up to him, bumped him, and then that's when he reacted.
Yeah, fuck it. And
you literally see Perry there for 30 seconds, and then Punk walks into the picture.
Right.
Then they're talking for another 20 seconds, and then as soon as Perry puts his hands through his hair and is defenseless, he shoves him and then throws a punch, and then gets behind him and tries to choke him, and then Samoa Joe comes and tells him to get the fuck off of him. And if you want anything, if there's anything that you need to see in this video to know that Punk was in the wrong, look at Chris Hero at the end of the fucking video. Chris Hero knows that Punk fucked up.
So there's a couple things about the video too that people wanted to fucking argue with me about, trying to say that he didn't throw a punch. And I boxed for a while. I know what throwing a punch looks like. And they were trying to argue that it was a two-handed shove. The problem with that is you see his fucking shoulder go down because he's bringing his fucking fist out and forward. This one, his left hand, he just brings it up because he's throwing a shit. He punches like shit. You see him do it again at the end too, because when Samoa Joe is trying to cart Jack off, he also throws a shitty little fucking side punch and does basically the same thing. But no, he absolutely throws a punch in that video. Even if you don't agree that the first one is a punch because you're blind or whatever, he throws a punch that ends up hitting Samoa Joe in the fucking back. So he is trying to punch during this. He also, when he does the initial...
When you shove somebody, do you try to shove them in the face?
Right, that's the
exactly. He was literally aiming for his face. Yes, exactly.
With one hand, yeah. And people say, "Oh, that's a pie face" or whatever. It's like when he brings his hand back to his side, it's closed. You can see it by his hip. It's closed. Now, Punk has never been a good puncher, so people are looking at this and they're like, "Oh, well, it doesn't look like a with a full rotation, hand up by here." That's because Punk doesn't know how to fucking punch. He's a shitty boxer. But it is a punch. It's like very clearly a punch. And then when he moves forward to Jack, what he tries to do is he tries to grab his hands in a double collar clinch or a double collar tie. There's like a split frame where you can see that Jack actually gets his hands and his wrists up in between the double collar tie, but he doesn't really know how to defend it, so he doesn't know how to swim over or anything like that. So then Punk pulls him down, and then that's when he gets what he's calling a choke, but you can see that his arm's not far enough forward for him to actually be choking him. His arm's mostly just around Perry's face. And then from that split second, it immediately gets broken up. So he didn't even actually have a choke on him at all. This is the funniest part. Never choked him because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Tried to clinch, didn't really work, but he was able to successfully pull him down. It kind of looked like Perry puts his hands on his legs to post while he's there. Which is not a good idea either. But again, Perry's not trained. But the funniest thing watching this was like, Punk trains and has trained for so long and like literally couldn't, with a clean shot against a guy who had his hands in his fucking hair, couldn't like really do anything except for make him stumble backwards slightly and then almost get double leg takedown. Like, it's crazy to me. He talked a lot of shit about how composed and how like controlled and how he was being responsible and whatever, but you see that he's just pissed that Jack doesn't give a fuck about anything he's saying, and then waits for a second, like a split second, to cheap shot him. It's so fucking lame.
By the way, if Jack Perry responds, if they're talking and he actually does respond, and no one really knows, if you look at everybody, they don't even seem like they're trying to pay attention to the thing without paying attention. They're literally just not paying attention to it. It's weird. But given the two people that it's involved, if he really did end up saying, what are you going to do about it? That's not something that warrants. Hey, I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to wait till you're going to put your hand in your hair, and then I'm going to fucking try to punch you in the face and sucker punch you. Like,
The
It was
funniest
clearly
thing,
a
too,
sucker
is
punch shot.
when Jack first puts his hands up in his hair, you see Punk's arm twitch, like he thinks about doing it that first time. He waits for a second to see how long Jack is going to keep his hands up, and he sees that one arm comes down and then goes back up into it, and that's when he throws. He's such a fucking bitch. It was like the lamest shit I've ever seen in my life.
The hardest part about watching this video, by the way, do you think it was a good idea to show the video on not even just in general, but on Dynamite? You like the way that the Young Bucks tied it into kayfabe?
I like that they tried to. I like that it sort of makes sense. I think it's too far removed from the Bucks FTR thing to try to make that tie.
Well, see, I don't think. Well, yeah, because they didn't bitch about it immediately the night after type deal.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. But in their defense, this is the first time that they'll be able to forcefully meet for the tag titles since that match too. So it's not like they wrestled 3 times before that either. You know what I'm saying? Or like after that, I mean, before this match.
I wasn't like super bought in on it, but I like that they tried to tie it to it. Whether or not showing it at all was a good idea, I have 2 thoughts on that. One, if the goal was just to get the footage out there because they wanted to kind of try to contradict this narrative that Punk was trying to paint, where he was just being like a super reasonable, calm guy and just had to handle business or whatever the fuck, you could have released that to journalists and let them tell the story or post the video or whatever without taking up time on your program. That's one of the main complaints that I think I have about it is you spent, I don't know, like 6-8 minutes between the 2 promos with the Bucks and the FTR doing this on the show.
That's the FTR thing right after is what annoys me. Like, you could have done the FTR promo, I think, on Collision.
Yeah. So I wasn't crazy about that. It just took too much time from like the product, but I'm fine with him doing it. I'm fine with, even if people are like, "Oh, it's kind of petty" or whatever. I'm fine with him doing it.
No, I'm not worried about pettiness at all. You know, everybody knows on this show that I'm here for all the pettiness, everything. The Ospreay comment about Triple H, all of it. I love all of it. I was an ECW fan. Of course, I love all of it. That's literally what they did every fucking show, was talk shit about Eric Bischoff and fucking Vince McMahon every fucking show on the mic.
People were also saying that it like. They were worried that it might make Jack look bad, but I don't see how it makes Jack look bad to have his hands up in his hair.
Okay, so listen. If
to
Jack's not looking for a fight, and then someone sucker punches him, then it doesn't make Jack look bad because we don't know if Jack could have actually taken him or not. That jury's still out. Right. But what we do know is that Punk couldn't take out a defenseless Jack. Right. That's what we know.
That was my thought on it too. I was just like, you're saying that it made him look bad, but at the end of the day, this trained MMA fighter that you guys like.
By the way, take out all that. Also, a fresh Punk versus a Jack Perry that just went through a fucking hardcore match.
Yeah. I thought about that too. And you couldn't even get him on his back. You couldn't take him down. You couldn't even correctly apply a fucking choke. You had a free shot on his face that did nothing to him, like at all. It's just, I don't think it made Punk look very good at all. That's where my brain was at.
The thing about it is that you can't go on the Ariel Helwani show and say, I just choked him a little bit, and then we literally have a video come out right after. Obviously, he didn't think that was gonna, I don't know what he was thinking when he said it. Like, he knows that they have the video.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they have this whole fucking thing with Danielson and the crew, the committee or whatever the fuck, they've watched this video how many times probably before they made that decision? Okay?
Yeah.
Then whatever ended up happening with him and Tony afterwards, where Tony said he feared for his life, quote unquote, then that gets taken into consideration as well. They had this information. They had this media. You talking about it, like the funny thing about it is that everybody was talking about the UK laws or whatever, that they're not allowed to release this footage. Dude, let me tell you something. As soon as Punk said anything about it, they had every right to release the footage.
I mean, it's also just not how those laws work.
So people in the UK are just as dumb as over here, apparently. All right, so
yeah.
And the other thing is that I want to talk about is the fact that so when the Bucks bring it up into the storyline, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that because then it gives me a little bit more reason why it makes sense for you to even have it on TV to begin with. Now, if they weren't going to try to tie it into the FTR match, then no, you just put it on your YouTube or you put it on your Twitter or you give it to a journalist like you said, Sean Ross Sapp or Meltzer or whatever. The other thing about it that I hated was a lot of the Punk fans, by the way, I am one, but not the hardcore ones, the ones that are going to defend him regardless. When that video came out on Dynamite, and they all went to their fucking keyboards on Twitter or their phones, and they said, "That's what he got fired for?" No, moron!
Yeah, no,
he
got
already
fired for
fucking
being
got
the
in
second
trouble
time.
for
Yeah.
Brawl Out.
Yeah.
He got suspended for Brawl Out. They brought his ass back, and then he did that. That's why he got fired.
Right. If this was his first offense, then it would be looked at just like the Andrade thing was, or the
Exactly.
Kingston thing
Yes,
was,
he would have been
or
gone for a
whatever.
couple weeks, and that would have been it, probably.
Yep. It's like, and if that were the
Oh,
case,
by the
you'd
way,
kinda
I don't think
understand.
Andrade after the Sammy Guevara or the Eddie Kingston after the Sammy Guevara or anything, they yelled out, "I quit, you're a fucking clown."
Right.
Shit
They
like
did go
that,
to Kobe
too.
and make it, yeah. Right. Yeah. So
I don't
It's
understand.
so funny
Like, do we just completely forget about fucking Brawl Out? We're going to
Or
our
did we
keyboards and
for-
typing this shit, and we don't even remember fucking Brawl Out, which was a huge fucking thing for how many months?
or did they stop watching the footage like immediately after they get separated? Because
I
there's a
got it
part
on
after
very
that
good
where he tries to,
authority.
like,
I have it on very
lunge
good
over the fucking
authority,
thing.
right? That everything that we learned about Brawl Out, that it was a far worse scenario than what the fuck happened between Punk and Perry, and yet Perry has been suspended longer than the fucking Bucks and Omega and Ace Steel was and all that shit. He's been gone for that whole time. Okay?
Right.
So I don't want to hear anybody say that's what he got fired for. What we should be saying is this is what Perry's still suspended for?
Right.
I mean, not like today, because obviously it's been turned into a storyline with New Japan, but before that, before he showed up in New Japan, that was already a long-ass time. He got sucker punch, blindsided, and you're telling me he's suspended that long because he said, "Cry me a river" on fucking TV?
And the funny thing is, it wasn't the pre-show.
Yeah, 0 hour.
And so yeah, it was like on YouTube, really. Because that's
Everybody,
we're saying.
what does
I mean,
this
it's
do?
on
They're
YouTube.
like, well, how does this help AEW? I don't know. Have you seen the t-shirt sales for the Scapegoat shirt?
Yeah.
Did you see the reaction at Windy City Riot for Perry? Did you see the people cheering for the Scapegoat shirt when Matthew Jackson fucking stood up at the end of
Right.
that segment? I think it's doing just fine for him. Now you can say that, oh yeah, Punk. Oh, they're getting over off of Punk. Who cares? Who gives a
Right.
shit how they're getting over? They're making money off of somebody that doesn't work for them that they don't have to pay anymore. That's called a genius move.
The Perry thing too, like, I don't know how long his real suspension was, but I suspect some time frame of that was actually just trying to get distance from it to figure out, okay, how are we going to bring you back without your whole fucking thing being around that? And then somebody just eventually deciding, no, we're just going to lean into it. Fuck it. There's no way around it. It's not like people are going to forget it.
That's
So
the
how
craziest
do we-
thing, man.
how do we bring it
I'm
back?
so torn between the situation because it's very well documented on the show that Jack Perry was my favorite of the four pillars. I used to get
Yeah.
killed on this show because I said I think Jack Perry is the better one out of the
Nice.
four pillars. Ryan used to be
MJF
like,
is
this is
better.
very early on when they first coined the four pillars or whatever, before
Mm.
MJF became champ and all that shit. And Ryan's a big MJF guy. And I was a big Jack Perry guy. So I don't want to hear anybody come on here saying, oh, you're just a Jack Perry fan or you're just a Punk fan. I'm a fan of both. I literally have a shit ton of Jungle Boy action figures. I got the special edition one with fucking him and Luchasaurus. I got a shit ton of Punk shirts and Punk action figures as well. Like, you have to be unbiased and logical when you watch that video and you watch everything that Punk had done before that. There's no way that you can sit there as a Punk fan. I don't give a fuck how big of a Punk fan you are, dude. You cannot sit there and be like, he's not the biggest hypocrite of all time. As soon as he went back to WWE at Survivor Series, at the end of Survivor Series, I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. He's just another guy to me now. I don't wish him ill will. I don't wish that he gets injured all the time or whatever the fuck's gonna end up happening. If he wins another world title in WWE, whatever. I mean, it's not gonna move me one way or the other either, though, is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not gonna be jumping up and down and be like, yeah, fucking Punk still got it because he pumped out a 5-star match with whoever, or he won a world title again, like I would have been in AEW, because he's already shown that he's a hypocrite, and that takes a lot of it away from me because of what his whole mindset was for his entire career. Was he was supposed to be against the establishment. He was supposed to be trying to change shit. and then something comes along that was literally built for him. Tony Khan is on record saying that literally the first person he wanted to sign in AEW was CM Punk, because this was his whole vision from the fucking pipe bomb interview. And then he gets into it after he makes sure that it's going to fucking be something that stays around. He comes back, and then he does what he does after a year of being on good behavior. He completely fucking muffs it twice, and then goes back to the place that he was talking mad shit about ever since he left it. The place that fired him on his wedding day. The place that tried to fucking, the place that he sued and won. That's where you went back to.
Because
like,
they were a
what?
threat to his life.
Oh
enough.
my god, dude. Yeah. The place that was a threat to your life, you decided to go threaten someone else's life to get fired from that place to go back to that place.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing too. People are, you know, I've said this before too, in other conversations about either on Twitter or whatever. If it was just the little Jack Perry scuffle and the shittiness of the attempted little sucker punch not leading to anything and then getting broken up, and then he just fucking walked away, and there was no incident at All Out, and he didn't do the trying to fucking lunge over the tables at Tony Khan bit, I probably just would have been like, oh, okay, like, you know,
regular ass, just the regular ass scuffle,
yeah.
yes, that we see every day. But that's not what it was. And also, the only props I can give Punk in that whole thing is that even though he turned to Tony and said, "You're a clown," and I quit, he actually did go out there and still did the match. He could have not went out there at all. He could have put an Ultimate Warrior on us and fucking just not went out there and fucked up everything. He could have literally fucked up everything.
That could have been money based, and it could have been Joe would have beat his ass based. So who knows?
Or maybe he didn't know maybe he didn't think he was going to lose his job, and he knew he would lose his job if he didn't go out there. Type deal, maybe. Maybe he still thought there was going to be a chance that he didn't get fired from AEW from that. But
I mean, they didn't decide it for a while.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe.